So, introduction to the skeletal system. The skeletal system forms the framework of the body. It is the body system composed of bones, cartilage, and ligaments. Each bone serves a particular function and varies in size, shape, and strength. Bones are weight-bearing structures in your body and can therefore change in thickness as you gain or lose weight. The skeletal system performs the following critical functions for the human body. It supports the body, facilitates movement, protects internal organs, produces blood cells, stores and releases minerals and fat. The skeletal system includes all of the bones, cartilages, and ligaments of the body that support and give shape to the body and body structures. The skeleton consists of the bones of the body. For adults, there are 206 bones in the skeleton. Younger individuals have higher numbers of bones because some bones fuse together during childhood and adolescence to form an adult bone. The primary function of the skeleton is to provide a rigid internal structure that can support the weight of the body against the force of gravity, and to provide a structure upon which muscles can act to produce movements of the body. In addition to providing for support and movements of the body, the skeleton has protective and storage functions. It protects the internal organs, including the brain, spinal cord, heart, lungs, and pelvic organs. The bones of the skeleton serve as the primary storage site for important minerals such as calcium and phosphate. The bone marrow found within bones stores fat and houses the blood cell producing tissue of the body. The skeleton is subdivided into two major divisions, the axial and appendicular. The axial skeleton. The axial skeleton forms the vertical central axis of the body and includes all bones of the head, neck, chest, and back. It serves to protect the brain, spinal cord, heart, and lungs. It also serves as the attachment site for muscles that move the head, neck, and back, and for muscles that act across the shoulder and hip joints to move their corresponding limbs. The axial skeleton of the adult consists of 80 bones, including the skull, the vertebral column, and the thoracic cage. The skull is formed by 22 bones. Also associated with the head are an additional 7 bones, including the hyoid bone and the ear ossicle, 3 small bones found in each middle ear. The vertebral column consists of 24 bones, each called a vertebra, plus the sacrum and coccyx. The thoracic cage includes the 12 pairs of ribs and the sternum, the flattened bone of the anterior chest. The axial skeleton has 80 bones and includes bones of the skull and face, vertebral column, and thoracic cage. The cranium or skull supports the face and protects the brain. It is subdivided into the bones of the skull and the bones of the face. The bones of the skull include the frontal, which forms the forehead, the parietal, which is the upper lateral sides of the cranium, the occipital, the posterior skull and base of the cranial cavity, the temporal, which is the lower lateral sides of the cranium, the sphenoid, the keystone bone that forms part of the base of the skull and eye sockets, the ethmoid, which forms part of the nose and orbit and base of the cranium, the auditory ossicles, which are the small bones of the middle ear, the external auditory meatus, which is the external opening of the ear and temporal bone. The bones of the face include the zygomatic, or the cheekbone, the maxillary, or the upper jaw and hard palate, the palatine, the lateral walls of the nose, the lacrimal bone, the walls of the orbit, the inferior conchae, which is the lower lateral wall of the nasal cavity, the vomer, which separates the left and right nasal cavity, the mandible, or the lower jaw bone, the only movable bone of the skull, and the hyoid bone, the bone located between the mandible and the larynx, not connected to other bones. The bones of the vertebral column. The vertebral column is also known as the spinal column or spine. It consists of a sequence of vertebrae, or the singular vertebrae, each of which is separated and united by an intervertebral disc. Together, the vertebrae and intervertebral disc form the vertebral column. It is a flexible column that supports the head, neck, and body and allows for their movements. It also protects the spinal cord, which passes down the back through openings in the vertebra. The types of vertebrae include the cervical, which is C1 to C2, or the first 7 vertebrae in the neck region. The thoracic, or T1 to T12, the next 12 vertebrae that forms the outward curvature of the spine. The lumbar is L1 to L5, and that is the next 5 vertebrae that forms the inner curvature of the spine. The sacrum is the triangular shaped bone at the base of the spine, and the coccyx is the tailbone. The bones of the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cage or rib cage forms the thorax or chest portion of the body. It consists of the 12 pairs of ribs with their costal cartilages and the sternum. The ribs are anchored posteriorly to the 12 thoracic vertebrae, T1 to T12. The thoracic cage protects the heart and lungs. Ribs. There are 12 sets of ribs and can be divided as such. 7 true ribs as they are attached to the front of the sternum. 3 false ribs as they are attached to the cartilage that joins the sternum. 2 floating ribs as they are not attached to the front of the sternum. The sternum, also known as the breastbone, is divided into 3 parts. The manubrium is the upper portion of the breastbone. The body is the middle portion of the breastbone. The xiphoid process is the lower portion of the breastbone and is made up of cartilage. The appendicular skeleton. The appendicular skeleton includes all bones of the upper and lower limbs, plus the bones that attach each limb to the axial skeleton. There are 126 bones in the appendicular skeleton of an adult. Bones of the pelvic girdle. The scapula is the shoulder blades. The clavicle is the collar bones. It connects the sternum to the scapula. And the acromion is the extension that forms the bony point of the shoulder. Bones of the upper limbs. The bones of the upper limbs include the bones of the arms, wrists, and hands. Bones of the arm. The humerus is the bone in the upper arm. The radius is the bone that runs thumb side of the forearm. The ulna is the bone that runs on the side of the little finger of the forearm.